Hey everyone, it's Monica Spain and this is That Transit Show. Today we're talking to one of the most trusted voices in traffic, Adam Gehrke. We'll talk about ways to take the sting out of summer traffic. And spoiler alert, that involves transit. And we'll have some fun at the farmer's market. Welcome aboard. Adam Gehrke, it's great to have you here. Welcome to That Transit Show.
Great to be here. Looking forward to this. I've been thinking about what we can talk about all for weeks now. So this is very exciting.
Awesome. I love it. Well, you know, summer construction season here in Seattle area. We're in Snohomish County, of course, but we're obviously impacted by anything going on in Seattle. And there are a lot of things going on this summer. Do you want to tell us about what you know?
Well, the big one that we're actually looking at this weekend kind of kicks things off in the Seattle area. And that is that WSDOT is going to be shutting down northbound I-5 completely, not completely, mostly from I-90 leading up to 45th in the U District. And what that's going to do this weekend, starting Friday night.
So northbound, right?
Correct. Okay. Northbound I-5 from I-90 leading up to 45th. The main line of I-5 will be out of commission that entire time. They're going to route traffic into the express lanes, which is sort of a stopgap measure, at least for the weekend. And this is all in preparation for what will be the Revive I-5 project that takes place for the next 4 weeks, which will effectively kind of be shrinking down northbound I-5's mainline lanes from Mercer up to 45th, right across the Ship Canal Bridge. I mean, the structure was built back, I think it was part of the New Deal, and has needed infrastructure repair for quite some time, so we're finally getting that service. But this was initially going to be a much larger project. They've got it right now kind of broken up into 2 chunks, 4 weeks now from this middle point of July to mid-August, and we'll revisit this again next year. There's going to be some interesting lane shifts that happen there as well. The northbound express lanes will also stay completely northbound this entire time for the next 4 weeks. So that's really going to have an impact for morning commuters getting into the Seattle area where they're used to having express lanes southbound. Whichever direction doesn't get the express lanes really just takes it on the chin. So that'll be impacting drivers southbound for the next month. But like I say, the big impact that begins this weekend with the full closure of the main line of I-5. That'll also be an impact for folks trying to get into the downtown core because a lot of the usual exits into downtown Seattle won't be accessible. You'll have Madison and James that you can use, or also Edgar Martinez to get into the stadium area. But anything north of that, up until you get to 45th, out of commission this weekend. So that's a lot.
Yeah. And there's a lot of fun things to do in the Seattle area. Right. So I imagine a lot of people from Snohomish County want to come into Seattle. You know, like, what do you know that's going on? That's going to be fun.
Mariners, Cal Raleigh's having this huge run right now, and so games are sold out. So everyone in the tri-county area, the 5 counties, you know, all around the area here, all flooding in to try and get into Mariners games. That's a big one. You'd also mentioned earlier to me before we began this, Ichiro Hall of Fame.
Yes.
That kicks off. I mean, everybody has festivals, street fairs, all the above. So trying to get around town this time of year, always a challenge to begin with. So,
And so, you know, for that reason, we really feel like people should be considering transit. You know, and even taking transit, taking the bus to light rail if you're in Snohomish County, because I'm sure you've noticed that parking at Linwood City Center is completely maxed out.
Yeah, communities that now house the stations, they're trying to figure out what to do with that overflow parking, because you don't want to have people who come in and flood the surface streets in the neighborhoods around to try and take the train. But this becomes that bigger issue: is how do we solve this? And so I think that's something that's still going to need to be worked out, because within weeks of the actual station's opening, we saw those parking garages absolutely maxed out. So that, huge issue. Getting that 2-mile solution is often the problem that we see with some of these other transit issues. Is we can get you to where you need to be within 2 miles, but then it's that last 2 miles or that first 2 miles that you really need to figure out, and that's the hardest solution, right? And I think that's where places like community transit really come in clutch, because you can make those deliveries. You can pick up folks from some of the neighboring communities, get them to the stations, and then they continue on.
So what other tips and tricks do you routinely give people? I mean, you're kind of the voice of traffic for many people in the Seattle area here. What are your tips and tricks?
One of the biggest things that I wish more industries and businesses would start to consider are some staggered start times to really start working around the clock. Because, you know, we have had the 9-to-5 workday concept in the U.S. forever. And that unfortunately has given us a a big influx of traffic all early in the morning and all in the afternoon. And so we get these two real big bubbles or big bursts beginning and ending of the day. Middle of the day, things are getting more impacted. I am seeing more of that. But what I would really like to see is industries and organizations and government starting to shift their start times for individuals so that not everybody has to show up at 9. Maybe you get people in at 6, 7, 8, 9, and so forth. Boeing started doing this a number of years ago, and that made a huge impact to what the traffic looks like on 526. We used to see the whistle blow at 5 o'clock, 526 would be slammed. And there are arguments from the traffic engineering perspective where there's the argument, if we create more lanes, we're creating more traffic, and that starts to gum things up. So we really need to make smarter use of the lanes that we have, and that's, again, where transit comes in. Absolutely necessary, because we need to be moving. Still, these people need to get somewhere. Let's do it in a fashion that's efficient. And so HOV lanes, buses, trains, planning accordingly, and really realizing, plotting that out beforehand, knowing what your itinerary is going to be and what it's going to look like, how to get from A to B. I think those are all smart things for people to do.
Okay. We're, I guess, a couple years removed from the pandemic now, and I'm just wondering if you've seen any shifts now that employers have called people back to work. I bet for a while, you saw fewer cars on the road when people were working from home, and then there was the hybrid model with people working in the office and at home. But now more people are going back to work. What are you seeing?
We are seeing that, and you're absolutely right. During the pandemic, it was like my career was in question at the time. I mean, there were news directors who were looking at me going, why do we have you here? And I had to remind them that traffic is more than just what you see on the roads. It can also include transit and ferries and all the other things that are still important. We still need these things. And obviously we're going to come out of this somehow. We need to have somebody who's still able to talk about it. So that was one thing. But you're right. The very fact is, we have, in my opinion, we have returned to what was pre-pandemic levels. If not, we have now increased beyond that. Whereas now at noon o'clock, I can see traffic absolutely slammed into Seattle from Northgate all the way down to the Ship Canal Bridge. That didn't used to be a thing. And speaking specifically for Seattle, getting in and around, I mean, I've grown up in the area since I was 3. My family moved here when I was 3, and so I know the region. I remember what things used to be like. And what I see now is, in Seattle, you're an hour from anything. If you need to get from Ballard to Capitol Hill, it's going to take you an hour to get there. It should take 20 minutes, in my opinion. But
right.
It takes you an hour
used
to get
to.
there. Right. And getting from Seattle, I like to get up into the islands on the weekend. So if I'm trying to get in through Everett and Marysville and Smoky Point, there's a lot of construction moving north, getting up through Smoky Point right now, right up towards the bridge, right as you get in through Arlington and Smoky Point, getting up towards 530 and then getting up to 532. There's all kinds of congestion that's happening up there as well right now, that all of this is giving us these longer wait times in every direction we head. So we're stuck in it.
Ouch.
Yeah, we're paying for it in some ways.
So even though Revive I-5 is happening in Seattle, we expect Snohomish County to be impacted, and other areas too. What is your prediction? Like if you had a crystal ball, which you have a lot of experience, so.
Yeah, looking specifically for travelers from Snohomish County trying to get into King County, I would anticipate the Revive I-5 project is really more of a northbound issue, so I'm less worried about everyone's arrival into town.
Even with the express lanes shuttling everyone northbound only?
That'll have an impact. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not going to be a cakewalk, but when I'm comparing apples and oranges on this, sure, southbound's going to feel the pressure of that. But it's that return home that I'm most concerned with. It's like, the game is over, yay, we won. Oh my gosh, it's going to take us 2 hours to get home. And so that's the side that I think people need to start bracing for and just mentally getting ready for. It's kind of like, if you knew it was coming, you could brace for it. You could have a water bottle ready to go in the car, or you could start thinking about, all right, strategically, where are we going to have to do a pit stop along the way? That's the sort of stuff that I start worrying about when it takes us. What should take you 45 minutes to head north is now 2 hours or more. That's what I really get more concerned with, especially for Snohomish County, Skagit County, anybody traveling from Island County who would try and make it into a game. Those are the folks that I really kind of get concerned with. That also in mind, I think what we're going to see in terms of, well, I think it's that main return home. That's the bit that I get worried about.
So, this is where transit maybe comes in and consider taking light rail. You just have to be mindful if you're taking light rail home from Seattle into Snohomish County, buses stop running a little earlier than the light rail runs. So you need to have a plan there.
Excellent. Yeah, that we, there are, I think a lot of folks end up also in some instances using a good old Uber or a Lyft. I've certainly done that myself, trying to make it from the airport and trying to get through Seattle or whatever, because trying to pay for parking down by the airport for if you're gone for a week, I did the math on that. All right, well, it's only going to cost me an Uber ride of $30 plus the $3 to take the light rail. Slam dunk, I'll do that. And I think, again, from a cost perspective for commuters, there's nothing beats what we deal with when we're dealing with transit, from community transit or sound transit. I think your dollar goes considerably further as a commuter using that than the hundreds of dollars you could end up spending either on parking or gas or wear and tear on your vehicle. I think there's no argument that would say, yes, spend more money. Yes, that's what we all want to be doing right now.
Right. Do you ever have public transit in mind? Is there ever any way to work that in? I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's one of those sort of things, if I don't have anything to report, I can say all systems are normal. And that's a lot easier to say than the 542 is doing this, the 323 is doing that, I only have 45 seconds or 60 seconds of time to deliver my message. So I really need to be efficient about what I can talk about, especially when I'm trying to cover so many counties.
Okay, so I want to hear your craziest, wildest traffic story that you can remember reporting on. It could be I-5, it could be something else. Maybe it's a few things.
Yeah, there's been a few. There have been a few in recent history. In the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've had 2 trucks of bees overturn. There was one just recently that overturned, and I always feel terrible about that, because these are they're bees. They're happy little pollinators. They're supposed to be, finding blackberries and other wonderful things to make the world better. And now we've lost an entire hive.
Oh.
So that's a bad one. But one of the strangest, craziest, and I'll try and keep this, on a somewhat politically correct level here.
Okay.
Happened many years ago, is when I was first reporting in Seattle at the time. There was reports of an individual along the Ship Canal Bridge, which is exactly where the Revive I-5 project is happening, right? There are 2 large power stanchions that run just west of the bridge, and you can see the tension, the power lines that are tensioned between the 2, and they kind of dangle over the Ship Canal. There was an individual who had climbed that power tower, and they'd taken off their top, which is always a bad sign. When people start taking off clothes on a bridge or an overpass, we have immediate concern, and that's where okay, we have definitely an issue here. But it didn't stop there. The person's now standing on top of that power tower, and they started breathing fire with a bottle of something and a torch. So they're a fire-breathing topless person on top of this power stanchion right next to I-5, and that shut the city down as far as I-5 was concerned.
So you had to describe this on air?
Yeah, and you're describing this, exactly. And so those who can see it...
Were you watching it on WSDOT? Were there WSDOT cameras at that time?
At the time, we were actually in the Columbia Tower, and we were up on the 73rd floor, so you could kind of see it if you got to the right spot, because we could see everything at the time. But it was one of those things where it was so unusual. You couldn't believe it. It's unbelievable talking about it now, saying that this has happened. But that, to me, still registers as one of the strangest, weirdest things I've ever seen when it comes to traffic. So
you used to do this in a helicopter.
Yeah.
You did it from the top of the Columbia Tower before there were all the other buildings there and things. So what's changed? What's different about doing this from a studio?
Right. There's several ways to look at it, and it has to do with the immediacy of what people have and what we have at our disposal now, right? So I've been doing this. I've been traffic reporting. I never saw it happening this way, but I've been doing it for 27 years, which is the longest out of everybody in town. I didn't ever see myself doing this long. Right?
You really are the traffic czar, Adam.
Yes, yeah. But the technology has changed. It's now in everyone's pocket. We see fewer radio stations interested in taking radio traffic information because radio stations are having their own issues, but also a lot of it's not live. when you're dealing with a radio report, there's an immediacy that's necessary because you're actually talking to people who are sitting in that traffic. So that is one aspect that's important to remember, because when I'm doing a report on television, I'm not telling somebody about what they're going to be sitting in at that very moment, because very few people are taking a streaming television service with them in their car. Some are, but the idea is more preparatory, where it's sort of, here's what we're seeing, these are the volumes we're talking about right now. This is going to take you 90 minutes or 120 minutes, or this is taking longer. Really start considering these other options. So it really is, it's more of a giving that broader overview of what you can expect and where you need to be looking, or other options to consider. That's now what I tend to do more than the immediate, watch out for this disabled vehicle, watch out for this car fire, watch out for this collision. That is what has changed. That's what's changed for me from the perspective of how I report on it. But there's also so much more now in people's pockets too, where we have Waze and Google Maps and all of the other traffic instruments that folks have at their disposal. It's in their dash. It's, that wasn't something we had almost 30 years ago. So.
You got your start in radio, didn't you? Tell me about that. Tell me how you got into this business to begin with.
Well, at the time it was the 90s, and I had hair down to my waist. And,
awesome.
And I mean, the Seattle scene was exploding, right? So you had all these Seattle bands, and I was in high school at the time.
The grunge.
The grunge era.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And I knew none of the bands that I was playing in were ever going to go anywhere, but a way I could stay close to music was maybe get into radio. And so at 17 years old, I became an intern at KISW in Seattle, 99.9.
Yes.
And the late, great, she's not late. She's just
She
late. The late, great Kathy Faulkner, I refer to as my radio mom. She took me under her wing, and that's where I started. From there, went off to college down at UPS in Tacoma, and worked with all the AM stations down in the South Sound. Would land a job back in Seattle working at a business talk station, doing stock reports. And I was overheard doing a stock report by my soon-to-be boss, and she said to me, you ever thought about doing traffic? And I said, no. And she goes, well, it pays better than this.
Oh, wow.
Said, I'm in, and literally delivered a tape cassette and a resume, and I was hired the next day on the spot. There wasn't really much of an interview process. There were no questions. It was just, okay, here you go. Now start learning. And because I grew up in the area, I already knew a lot of the roads. So that part of the learning curve was I had a little bit of a jump start on that.
Do you have any public transportation stories of your own?
Yeah, there's actually a few that come to mind. Having grown up in the area, and now, I mean, judging by the silver that I have in my hair, it kind of gives you an indication where I sit, Gen X, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
We often don't get talked about.
Right.
But I was here when the downtown then bus tunnel was being built, and I got to tour that as a kid. And now it's the light rail is running through there. So that was kind of the beginning for me of starting to understand or wrap my head around any sort of public transit, that, oh, this is going to be a thing. And by the time I was in about 7th grade, that's when I started utilizing Metro Transit, because suddenly the world was now, and my folks, at the time I was a little taller than the other kids in the class, so my folks were like, he's tall enough, he can ride the bus. And so by 7th grade, I was riding the bus all around the King County area. And that to me was a huge opportunity to now, like, suddenly I could spread my wings and I could go places. And at the time, a lot of my friends growing up out in kind of the Redmond area, they had no concept outside of Redmond. But here I was now,
jet setting on the bus. Yeah.
I mean, this gave real opportunity. And so that was kind of the first starts that I had in it. It just was an eye-opener for me to get to have that experience, that I got to see more of the world than my friends growing up. So that laid the groundwork for it. And since then, whenever I go visit another municipality or another larger European cities, one of the first things I love to do is I love to get aboard their different transit systems and just figure them out. And that's again the travel geek in me, but it's also the transit geek, where I like to figure it out and see how they've put it together. And some of them are doing a really bang-up job. Like Paris comes to mind. I was just there. I mean, that's been very well established, but they've got great apps, great lines, great everything. It's just really, really intuitive and very cool. So, yeah.
Nice. Okay, now we can't let you go without asking, what are your summer movie recommendations? So when you're on the bus,
Yeah. Movie recommendations. Well, We're right in the blockbuster scene of things right now, and I feel like we're kind of tail end of July is where we're headed right now. We've seen Superman come out. I think that's been a great pick for a lot of folks who are looking for the blockbuster. You had F1, another big blockbuster that's sitting out there, Jurassic World. I'm less excited about that, but these are all the big players that right now they're making gajillions of dollars. I just saw a smaller film last night from director Ari Aster, and it's called Eddington. Has Joaquin Phoenix and the man of the year, Pedro Pascal, in it. This is a film that is sitting with me really odd.
Oh, yeah? Why is that? Well, no spoiler alerts,
I don't want to spoil anything, and I haven't fully written this up yet, but the gist is that Ari Aster, as a director, is very good at creating anxiety. And the film builds in its anxiety to the point where there was a film a few years back called Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler, and it was actually a film where if you saw Adam Sandler acting, you'd be like, oh my gosh, he can act. He can do more than just his goofball routine. Uncut Gems should have gotten more praise than it actually did. By the end of that film, you feel exhausted because you've just been worked through the ringer on it. That's what Eddington felt like for me. So that's one to just keep on the back burner for the next couple of weeks. Just see how the rest of the world reacts to it. This is not common fare for folks. But if there was a film out there that I would suggest people see from last year that I'm still in love with and I think is fantastic, I would love to see more of. It's called Sing Sing. And that film, it's a smaller film that came out, and it's about the rehabilitation through the arts program in the Sing Sing prison in New York. And that features a number of actual individuals who went through that program, this prison system, plus a few other actors, Coleman Domingo being one of them. But that film in itself, I think, didn't get the attention it needed, and it was just an absolute gem from last year, and I think that's one everybody needs to see yet.
Great. Well, we'll check it out.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for being here. It's been great having you on That Transit Show.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Want to keep it local this summer? You can take transit to your nearest farmer's market. We'll show you how.
Hi, it's Laurel.
And Sam.
We took the bus to the Lake Stevens Farmers Market.
We started our trip by meeting up at the Lake Stevens Transit Center so that we didn't have to worry about parking near the busy farmers market.
We boarded Route 280 toward Granite Falls, and after about a 15-minute bus ride, we got off at a stop just a short walk from the market.
Our mission for the day? To try as many tasty treats as possible.
We started strong with some delicious fresh squeezed lemonade.
We both got lavender flavor, and it was so refreshing.
Next stop, some fresh cherries from one of the fruit vendors.
We ended up buying a giant bag of cherries to split between us. We continued to explore the market. Vendors were selling fresh flowers, vegetables, candles, soaps, and more.
We made our way to the food truck area and chose to eat at a Filipino food truck.
We got an order of beef lumpia. They had the perfect crunchy outside.
Finally, we ended our tasty trip with a stop at a cookie truck and picked out a giant chocolate cookie to split for dessert.
We hopped on the bus back to Lake Stevens Transit Center.
It was a great way to spend a Wednesday afternoon.
Remember to stay cool and skip the stress this summer by taking transit. I'm Monica Spain. See you at the next stop.